Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Thank you for joining us as always. On Wednesday, 4th of November 2020, the iconic Otumba Yinka Lawal Solarin passed on. He was the doyen of Nigeria's publishing industry. Otumba Lawal Solarin founded Literamed Publications, or what you might know more as Lantan Books, in 1969. This publishing firm was one of the very first indigenous publishing firms in Nigeria. 1969 was when the publishing industry in the country was dominated by British publishing houses. So it was audacious for any Nigerian to start an indigenous competitor. This story is well detailed in his memoir titled The Courage to Succeed. If you attended primary school in Nigeria anytime after 1970, chances are high that you used one of these books or their earlier versions: Steps to Verbal Aptitude and Steps to Quantitative Aptitude. These titles and other titles made Otumba Yinka Lawal Solarin's company one of the largest publishers of children's books in West Africa. He graduated from Norwood College, University of Bradford School of Pharmacy, and Portsmouth University School of Pharmacy, United Kingdom, as a pharmacist. He was a former president of the Nigerian Publishers Association and a former chairman of the Nigeria Book Fair Trust. Join us today to take a look at the history of publishing in Nigeria and Otumba Yinka Lawal Solarin's place in it is Richard Mama, a former executive director of the Reading Promotions Agency and author of The History and Prospects of the Nigerian Book, and also the Nigerian Books Directory and Guide. Enjoy this. Richard, thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you here.
I appreciate it.
Great. Now, my condolence, Otumba Lawal Solarin. I know you were a bit close to him.
Yeah.
He passed on some days back.
Quite some situation.
Painful.
Yeah, quite some situation. Sad.
We'll get back to him, but I know you've done quite some work looking at the history of publishing in Nigeria, and you've been in the publishing sector for like over 4 decades or so. Let's look at that story a little bit. It's very easy these days to forget, where Nigeria, was in the past and where we're coming from. Talking about the publishing sector in Nigeria, what's our story?
Yeah, thank you. I think our story in publishing is, I would say, it's an interesting one because, as we know, we are coming from, or we were coming from a background of a culture that was essentially oral. Now, so that when we now got into what we call now the modern environment, coming in with our interface with Europe, more so in the southern part of the country at the beginning, what happened then was that there was now a need, for correspondence between us, Nigerians, and the Europeans, the British, in that sense. So that meant that people had to be trained as interpreters first, and then, teachers, civil servants, in that sense. And so that is where we met the book, in that sense. Now, but that is not the beginning of the Nigerian book, because the Nigerian book began with Oyauda Equiano, which was published abroad.
Yes, I saw that in your book.
Yes.
Yeah, your book titled
History and Prospects of the Nigerian Book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, so you told about, he was a slave.
Yes.
Taken from here to Europe, and he learned how to read and write.
Yes.
And then he wrote the first, you call that the first Nigerian book.
Yeah, that's the point, because Oyauda Equiano was from Nigeria, taken abroad as, a slave, and when he got in there, got education in the Western sense, joined the abolition movement, and told his story. even went on a whole lot of the campaigns, with the rest of the abolition movement. So he told the story. That was 1789.
1789.
Yeah, so that in itself would be the first book written by a Nigerian in the modern,
even though there was no
sense.
Nigeria back then, though,
yes.
but it was from this area called Nigeria anyway.
Yes.
So we could still call him a Nigerian.
Yeah. Just like you have the reverse diaspora writers now, in that sense. So you had a piano, but then the British came in here, and then they now began to interface with us a lot more. There was 1861, the colony, of Lagos. And that meant then that institutions began to build, and so you now had CSS Bookshop, 1869.
Bookshop.
Yes.
1869.
1869.
That was the first bookshop.
That was the first bookshop in Nigeria. So you moved on from CSS, and now you started going into a whole lot of the developments but at this point, the books that we were having were still being printed abroad. That was about the turn of the century. The British government printer set up one. In Calabar, they set up another one. And then in Onitsha, you began to build the commercial press, which built up into the Onitsha market, literature tradition, in that sense.
Yeah.
So presses, some of them were being set up to support newspapers, like Iwe Iroyin.
Iwe Iroyin.
Yes.
That was the first newspaper published in Nigeria,
yes, that was the first.
Iwe Iroyin.
Yes, the CMS, yes. Henry Townsend.
Henry Townsend.
In Abeokuta,
Whoa.
So you had this build-up until...
I'm so excited by Nigerian history.
Until you now got to the establishment of University College Ibadan. That's University of Ibadan today, about 1949. And that was where it was now time to begin to deepen a proper publishing, structure. Because now publishers were now coming in because there was a university. There was increased demand for educational materials first. First was missionary materials, and basic literacy. Now it was educational materials. Okay. So publishers began to come in.
So that was when the British publishers came in.
Mostly. Macmillan, Heinemann, University Press, Oxford. Yeah. And they established in Ibadan, which was in the neighborhood of the university.
Ibadan.
And that's why some of the first professionals that got to the indigenous Nigerian publishers were those that were trained in Ibadan. Achebe is connected to that. Christopher Okigbo is connected to that stream, in that sense. Iwerabong, going on, who was associated with Longman and all the other publishers. They were Ibadan people because you now needed to raise these systems to now feed the publishing sector. So that way, you now had that first stream. But as this was going on, you now also built onto the second stream, which is the indigenous Nigerian publishers. About the first was Onibonje.
Onibonje.
Yeah, he was a history teacher who wrote a book about 1958, and from there he built on into a publishing environment. Onibonje Books.
Onibonje Books, very popular.
Right. And that's where Otumba comes into the picture. Because about 10 years after Onibonje, Otumba, who had returned to Nigeria as a pharmacist, had a challenge to publish a pharmaceutical index. In the course of publishing it, he was a pharmacist. He enjoyed publishing the pharmaceutical index, that he continued publishing the pharmaceutical index and later branched off into publishing other things.
Otumba in Kalawa,
Ultramed Publications. Yes. Yeah.
So he started Literamed in 1969.
1969.
Can you place that? I mean, how significant was that? From what you've said now, it wasn't the first indigenous publishing.
No, Onibonje is closer to the first indigenous, publisher, because that was 1958.
Okay, I always assumed that Literamed was the first indigenous. I mean, maybe...
No, Literamed is significant because not only is it one of the first indigenous publishing firms, but it has remained consistent and sustain the structures to be about the oldest surviving.
We're talking
50
about
years, 52 years now.
Running a company, a publishing business for 52 years is incredible in a country like this.
It is.
It's equivalent to running a business maybe in Europe or in North America for 200 years, in my opinion.
No, you are right.
Considering the tremendous challenges.
No, you are right. You are right. The infrastructure issues, the financing issues, the logistics and all of it, And, you want to also add to Yawashu's, credit the fact that it did not just run a single publishing house, Literamed Publications. It got involved in the whole business of the ecosystem. Yeah. Publishing, book fair organization, reading promotions, anti-piracy. Yeah. So it was running a publishing house on its own, but it was also involved in building the composite industry.
Yeah, I think that was what marked him out. Really.
Yes.
He was president of Nigerian
Publishers Association. He was chairman of the Book Fair Trust, Nigerian Book Fair Trust, that organizes the Nigerian International Book Fair.
He was involved in the founding of the Nigerian Book
Fair Trust.
Nigerian International Book Fair, wasn't he?
Yes, it was, because some of the first meetings that were held, to crystallize Nigerian International Book Fair, even at the agency of Nigerian Book Fair Trust, were held in Literamed, in that sense. Even before then, there had been campaigns like the National Book Week that he was also engaged in running with Professor Chukwuemeka Ike. He was also engaged, in running. And he was also chairman of the National Anti-Piracy Committee at a point in time also. So it was quite a towering figure. I
was talking to some people some time ago. I said, look, we all read something produced by Lantan Books, unless you are in your 70s or your 60s, and you never attended primary school after 1970. Because after 1970, after I created Literamed in 1969, he began to churn out all these books that almost everybody that went to primary school then used at one time or another. Verbal aptitude, quantitative, and all that. Did you buy any? What's your take on that?
No, you're quite interesting. Quite interesting, because I know that there was and this has a history, because at a point, we talked about him starting as a pharmaceutical, publisher, but at a point he got so engaged in educational publishing and in children's publishing for children. And I think that's where some of these currents came in, because Lantan Books, the imprint that through which a number of all these came in, was quite impactful, and it kept building. And that connects, to the other strand, that is the reading promotion, strand. The mobile, books segment of Lantan Books, they were going around, where there was a book fair, where there was an exhibition, where there was a reading event, just going around, getting involved with authors, with booksellers, with reading promoters. They were quite engaging. But in terms of the contribution to educational publishing, you are right. In the southwest, in Lagos, the southwest area, for example, many schools have used Lantan Books over time, and then even going to other parts of the country. Many schools, many organizations, and I know that at a point, Lantan got involved so much in publishing for children, and Otumba was so immersed in it, was so immersed in it, that he kept pushing that, hey, more books. They did series on the founding fathers of Nigeria, Azikiwe,
Awolowo,
Ahmadu Bello, and all that.
Yeah.
So he wanted to put a book in everybody's hand, in that sense.
I think as much as he's spoken about within the publishing sector, his role within the education sector must also be seriously put into consideration. His contributions there were immense over the decades. Richard, we have to stop here now. Thank you very much for joining us on Channels Book Club.
I appreciate this.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks.
One of the aspects of Otumba Yinka Lawal Sholarin's life that I personally found very inspiring was his approach to health and fitness. At age 85, he was still very active. He went to the office every day, played golf, and was intellectually sharp. I'm usually very inspired by, very elderly people who do all that. Now, I'll show you a video I recorded in his office with his cooperation. He was very happy to give me the permission to share this publicly. Pardon me for the quality. It was unplanned for, so I didn't have any of my brilliant friends behind the camera with me. I was compelled to rely on my amateur video shooting skills with my hand device. But it's priceless material now that Otumba Yinka Lawal Shularin has passed on. Look out particularly for what he could do at age 84 when I recorded this. Hopefully, it will inspire we young ones who are already feeling back cramps. You might also want to pay attention to his invaluable health and life tips. Enjoy this. Let's go. What? You're 84 years old?
Yeah.
How do you do that at 84?
How do I do that at 84? It's knowing your body. Making sure that you do not take, I don't know, how do you do that at 84? An exercise. I've been doing that for years.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, for quite a while, maybe for about 20 years.
Are there things you don't eat?
Pardon?
Are there things you don't eat? What's your diet like?
No, my diet is a simple diet. You eat a lot of vegetables. You don't eat too much, so that you don't fall asleep all the time. You know, and your body can digest what you eat. For instance, I have cornflakes in the mornings, or not cornflakes, but cereals in the morning, and fruit. Lunch, I'm going to have it now. Maybe sometimes I play golf and things like that. And that walking, you walk for hours on the golf course.
To walk for hours?
Yeah, you do. You cannot play 18 holes without walking for 3 or 4 hours. And you have to exercise.
And how many days a week do you do that?
Right?
How many days a week do you do that?
I do three times a week. I do not, now at 84, I do not play 18 holes at a time. But I play at least 9 holes, 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
Yes. I do. As a matter of fact, if the weather is good, I'm going to go this afternoon, yes.
And you still walk? You come every day?
Listen, those young people, I still beat them on the golf course, and they cannot understand how an old man 84 can walk that fast, and that's almost sometimes faster than they do.
Do you still come to office every day?
Yeah. Wait a minute, otherwise what would I do? If my wife is in the office now, just sleep down and vegetate? No way. This keeps it going. Even if I'm just sitting down and talking to you. I mean, everybody's doing their work.
How many hours a day do you walk at the office?
Oh no, that depends.
Depends.
Yeah, but I come every day. Now, for instance, last time I used to come about 9:30 or something like that. But suddenly I came here at 8 o'clock one day and found that nobody was at work. So I said to them, okay, now you meet me. I'm here, I work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so if you're not there, man, you have to explain why you haven't come.
Okay, finally, sir, any word for young people out there?
Be happy. No grudge. Look forward. Don't look backwards. Anything, look, time, you cannot, the river does not flow backwards. It always flows forward, so you always look ahead. Whatever has happened yesterday, you must forget and move on. Right, that is absolutely important. Don't hold any grudge. Be happy. Have a lot of friends. You don't have to keep friends just because of friends. Keep friends that are compatible with your
values,
aspirations and values. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
I hope it's good for you.
Fantastic. He will be greatly missed, especially by the publishing industry in Nigeria. May his soul rest in peace. You just have to wonder if the world will ever remain the same again. This year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, major literary events all over the world have been held on technological platforms rather than at physical locations. One of such events, Akada Children's Book Festival, followed the same global pattern this year. The festival, which is fast becoming popular with Nigerian children, was held on a virtual platform, akadafestival.org. While the festival was on, it was also beamed on YouTube and Facebook. The theme of the festival was Light Up the World, Share a Story. It included an illustration competition for children below 13, workshops for writers, book readings, and other activities, including dancing. Here are a few sound bites and clips from the virtual book festival.
My name is Joyce Daniels, the quintessential speaker and master of ceremonies, here to make sure you have a swell and seamless time.
Hello and welcome back to the Akada Children's Book Festival. I say welcome back because I know many of you attended our first edition last year. Welcome back to the second edition. And yes, here we are. We made it. Despite the pandemic, despite COVID-19, despite lockdown, stay at home, social distancing, here we are. Hooray! Give yourself a huge pat on the back for making it. Yes, 2020 will not get you down. So, welcome to the second edition of the Akada Children's Book Festival, coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria.
Today I'm going to be reviewing this book, What Sonny Saw in the Flames by Nnedi Okorafor. I learned a lot of things, like there are more things important than money, a place where your worst flaw can actually be your greatest asset, and reading books a lot, it makes you know more things, so you have more wisdom and knowledge in things.
My name is Tonya Bitamo, and today I will be talking about I Am Not Naughty. I really mean it for Akada Children's Book Festival. If I was to rate this book from 1 to 5, I rate it a 5/5 because this book teaches just many things. And my favorite part in the book was when he made friends.
My name is Adeshina Mobolorin.
My name is Mojulu Adeshina. Today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite books. My favorite book is The Greatest Animal in the Jungle, written by Shokwe Martins. What's your favorite book?
My second favorite book is Tribes Apart, written by Mojo Adeshina. So what do you like about in The Greatest Animal in the Jungle?
Okay, what I like about The Greatest Animal in the Jungle is the main character, which is Afue. It teaches us that we should always be ourselves and not somebody else.
What do you like about Tribes Apart? What I like in Tribes Apart is when Abu the Hausa boy and Ara the Yoruba boy save baby Amara from the burning house.
I'll be talking about a book called Agadima, Diary of a Housemaid by Chigbo Ugwoke. The book is a lovely and interesting book that teaches you, and you can feel the experience of a maid, of a housemaid, working, and all the circumstances she has to go through during life.
I hope you have had a good time with us today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. I'm Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book and change your life. Bye-bye.